A special show for you tonight as we are covering the entirety of the 2021 Barbasol Championship in one go. Yes, that means the initial research, the data dive, and the DFS tactics all crammed into one. It's going to be an interesting show as I've never done that before. For those of you that don't know, there is an alternate field event for those players that aren't at Royal St. George's for the Open Championship. They are in Nicholasville, Kentucky for the Barbasol Championship. I want to give a special shout out to one of my subscribers, Bobby Calvert, has reached out to me and asked for help on a contest that his office runs regarding the Open Championship. I'm glad to help. I don't know how much help I'll be, but I'm willing to help. So thanks for subscribing. I really appreciate it. Anybody else out there that wants some lunatics help, at least to show the data for what you should do, be more than happy to help you. So thanks for the support. It's always appreciated. Guys, smash that like button for the extra content tonight for the special show. Subscribe to the channel. Again, support is always appreciated. The only other announcement, as always, FantasyNational.com is providing all the statistics tonight, as they always do. Amazing resource. If you haven't gone and checked them out, what are you doing? You see the Gatorade in the background. We've got a lot to cover, so let's get started. And we'll transition quite literally over here. This is the kind of sorted data model that I have built for the Barbasol this week. And give me one moment as I am going to adjust this camera slightly. There we go. You can see here, if I come to the model page, with this course in Nicholasville, Kentucky, it is a very, very, very easy course. So before I get into this, we're at Keene Trace Golf Club in Nicholasville, Kentucky, as I mentioned, for the Barbasol Championship. So I'm going to do my best to cover this in chronological order as I normally do. So let's do a quick rapid fire initial research. So here is the course breakdown for Keene Trace Golf Club. You'll notice that there's a lot of green on this course. It generally plays pretty easy, but there were two things that really jumped out at me very quickly. It is a par 72. There are two holes that are above a 9% eagle rate. That is ludicrously high for a PGA Tour event. You'll notice that two holes that play to 7/10 of a stroke easier than the par. So if you are not getting birdies on this hole, or on these two holes, you are absolutely losing strokes to the field. And if you're getting eagles, you're only gaining a stroke, not two, on those two holes. So that immediately jumped out to me. There is a 0% double bogey rate on this hole. So it looks fairly mundane. I mean, it's not a par 5 that's less than 500 yards or anything like that. It's par 5, 554, which is, I wouldn't say it's tour average, but it's not a short hole by any means. This one's pretty darn short, par 5, 515. But just looking at this in my initial just overview of Keene Trace, seeing two holes that are 9% eagle rates, well, that jumped off to me that I'm going to want to look at easy courses. I'm going to want to look at players who take advantage of par 5s, because all par 5s are playing very easy at this course, but those two especially. And I wanted to make sure I looked at birdies or better games. I mean, just the prototypical easy identifiers. So that was the first thing that jumped out at me. The second being that the par fours are generally pretty short. The par threes are actually pretty tough on this course apparently. So we'll go in order. The first one is fairly easy. It plays to a tenth of a stroke under par. But then the toughest hole on the course is the ninth at par 3 203. The fourth toughest and the fifth toughest. So the par threes seemingly are the difficulty of the course. And full disclosure, I have no idea on specifics of this course. I have no idea if there's water in play, if there's no water in play. Trying to cram everything into one show, I'm going to skip the satellite view of the course and just kind of get an a high level view of the course in this regard. Those are the two things that jumped out at me. So definitely going to look at par fives and par five success rate. Birdies are better, eagles, so on and so forth. The par fours are fairly short with a couple of exceptions. Par 4 465, that actually might be the longest, which is pretty darn short. You've got a 393, 420, 437, 415, 401, and 425. So pretty short par fours. But the par threes is the difficulty of the course, so might want to take a look at some par three scoring. Who at least is okay at them. Doesn't bleed strokes in par threes, but I'm definitely going to want to focus on par fives. When I started looking at Keen Trace, as we saw with the British Open, there's just not a lot of data here, and we'll dig into it as the data dive portion of the show comes around. The Barbasol Championship has been played at Keen Trace the past two iterations, 2018 and 2019. Of course, 2020 canceled due to, like many other events, due to the COVID pandemic. So no data there. And 2019 is not. The leaderboard is up, but we don't have statistics, at least from Fantasy National, on the 2019. So there's really only 1 year of data in the database here at Fantasy National for the Barbasol. So there's a little bit of conjecture that I've had to do based on just 2018 data. Now, there was data, obviously the 2019 tournament was played. We just don't have the data for it. But we'll take a look at the leaderboards and try to figure out who tends to play well at this course and so on and so forth. But a quick look here, the approach shot distribution, there's a lot more coming from 125 to 150 as opposed to the tour average, which makes sense just because it's a short course. Nothing very long. You're not having a lot of wedges in per se, but this is the main area of approach shots. So something to definitely factor in if you're a Fantasy National member. Probably want to take a look into that. The cut line in 2019 was -3. 2018, I believe it was -4 or 5. It played very, very easy. And you can see here, an astronomical amount of birdies to bogeys. It's almost double. It is double. It is double birdies to bogeys. So a very easy course. Driving accuracy is roughly tour average. The difference being, if I scroll down here to the distance, you just bomb the hell out of it here at this course. Almost 9 yards of difference in driving distance. That doesn't sound like a lot. It is. Because hitting the fairway apparently is fairly easy here. Even though the driving accuracy is just a bit over tour average. When we dig in a little bit further into the data dive portion, you'll see that it is classified as hitting fairways easy. So guys just bomb it. Kind of like the 2 weeks leading up to the Open Championship in the Travelers and the Rocket Mortgage, especially at the Rocket Mortgage, where distant, you just bombed it as far as you could. Fairway be damned. So something to definitely take a look. I've definitely put driving distance as a main factor in my model. Distance of birdie putts, it looks like a lot of putts are just close, just because. Well, and that kind of makes sense here due to the green and regulation proximity. It's almost 2 feet closer to the hole, so that either tells me that the course is very easy, which it obviously is, so guys are able to stick it close, or the greens are small, and both of these could be true, contributing to so many birdie putts being from 0 to 5 feet. But those are the two initial reactions that I have when I'm seeing so many birdie putts that close. And I'm sure it's a combination of the two. But there's a quick overlook of the course. Again, just a high-level view. Not going to go into the satellite portion, but I am going to keep this up when we refer back to the model, the DFS portion of the data dive. I'll take a look at the wind. I know I usually do it in the initial research and in the DFS tactics portion. I'll take a look at the wind at the end of the show, which reminds me, guys, chat is always open. Please interact. I want to hear what you're thinking about. Maybe you didn't even know that the Barbasol Championship was happening. Let me know what you want to know about it. Or if you have some open championship thoughts, chat's open. Interact. Would love to hear what you're thinking about, what you are wanting to see in these data models. But when we coming back to the traditional or the tournament conditions that have been registered at Barbasol, we're only going to go back to 2018 because in 2017, 16, and 15 it was played at a different course down in Alabama. And now from 2018 and 19 it has been at Keene Trace, like I said, in Nicholasville, Kentucky. The greens are bent. They're bent grass. In 2018 at least, scoring relative was easy to par, very easy to par. The courses, par 72 as I mentioned. The length is 7,200 to 7,400. I really don't know the length because I haven't gone to Pro Visualizer. I don't plan on going to Pro Visualizer. It looks like a short course. I'm actually surprised it's in between 72 and 7,400. I would have thought it was less than 7,200. So it can't be much more than 7,200 just by a mind's eye quick calculation of the distances here. It can't be much more than 7,200. Typically the wind is not a factor. That's actually a slight difference this week, as we'll get into. But the main thing to take away here, bent grass greens, they're generally soft. That's another reason why I imagine proximity is closer. Birdie putts are from 0 to 5 feet. If the greens are soft, they're receptive. Guys are able to hit their approach shots closer to the hole without fear of either the ball spinning completely back on them off the green or taking a big bounce and going longer than anticipated. You'll notice in 2018 at least, hitting the fairways was easy, and in the first round last year was easy. Or when I say last year, I mean 2019, the last time it was played. But it's never been difficult. It's just been average. So that leads you to understand why people just bomb at this course, try to get as far as they can. There are a couple other tabs I have up here, but that's basically the depth that I wanted to do on the initial research. So let's come back and look at the model that I at least had initially designed, and I've tweaked it just a bit, added a metric. Subtracted a metric, added percentages elsewhere, and this is what I've come up with. Strokes gained off the tee, 10%. A lot of that is baked into driving distance, and I've actually separated out driving distance in of itself. So I think off the tee game is going to be very important, and I'll show you why as we dig into the data. whenever I'm approaching a new course, a new tournament, or even building the model in its base, followers that have been, or followers of the channel, followers of me know by now that I am an approach preferred player. I much prefer guys who are striking their irons well versus putting well. And the reasons for that are myriad. Basically, I think putting is a volatile statistic, comes and goes, whereas irons, generally speaking, if you're hitting your irons better, you're leaving yourself better chances to make birdies anyway. Strokes gained putting, I do have at 15%. Again, this is kind of a guess. I don't have around the green, and the reason for that is when I look at the tournament history and the leaderboards of those two, strokes gained around the green kind of didn't matter. You had some people that were high up on the leaderboard that did well and that didn't do well on that statistic. So I just kind of, mind's eye, or as I think of it, that's kind of a wash. Maybe it helps some players, maybe it doesn't. But again, in doing just a quick, basically 6 hours, 10 hours worth of research, I just kind of negated that to a wash, and perhaps that's a wrong thing to do. I don't know. But I do have putting at 15%, especially since we saw how close these birdie putts are. I mean, yes, these are professionals, but 0 to 5 foot putts can be no gimmies sometimes. So I wanted to make sure I factored in putting. I didn't do putting from 0 to 5 feet, even though that's a statistic. I just wanted strokes gained putting in of itself, because if the greens are small, even if they're not in between 0 and 5 feet, they should be relatively close to the hole. So I want to see who is adept at making those putts anyway. Hopefully that makes sense. They might not be from 0 to 5 feet, but guys are just naturally better from 10 to 15 than other guys and whatnot. This being a very easy course, I wanted to look at. I have 15%, a lot of percentage built into birdies or better. You just have to attack this course. If you're going to make pars, you're going to be left behind at this course. So I wanted to see who is adept at birdies or better. I do have 5% eagles, just because we saw how easy the par 5s are on this course. Eagles are going to be a decent factor, I think. If you can make 2 eagles on the week, 3 eagles on a week, you're going to separate yourself from the guys who are birdieing but not truly taking advantage of the course and getting eagles. I mean, even some of the par 4s had a decent amount of eagles by par 4 percentage. I mean, you have a par 4 here that's a 0.5%, but that's a lot for a par 4. It really is a lot for a par 4. And that kind of makes sense for a short-ish par 4 at 393. It doesn't seem drivable, but I would tend to think that that either means the green is the hole is shaped easy, or the pins are not overly difficult. So again, this is pure conjecture. Don't really have a great idea on it. But I did want to put in a factor of eagles, just because the par 5s are so darn easy on this course. And I have 15% driving distance and 15% strokes gained par 5. Hopefully that makes sense after having gone through the course breakdown. When we load the model, it's fairly chalky at the top. So Seamus Power, Charles Schwartzel, Luke List, and Patrick Rogers are the top 4 price-wise in DFS. And just disclaimer, I'll probably combine the data dive and DFS portions together as I talk through this. But it's fairly chalky up there, with the exception of Patrick Rogers. He just doesn't rate out very well in what I am valuing for this course. He doesn't take advantage of the par 5s nearly at the rate that these others do. He is not a particularly good putter, although he's better than Luke List. And he certainly has not been hitting his irons very well lately. Because this is an alternate field event, you'll notice that I have actually included Korn Ferry Tour stats. There are quite a few Korn Ferry Tour players at this event this week. Certainly PGA pros as well, but Korn Ferry Tour players are more abundant here than other PGA Tour events. So I wanted to make sure I accounted for Korn Ferry players if somebody is in great form recently or tends to play well on similar style courses. Because I'm not as familiar with the Korn Ferry Tour, I want to make sure I am acknowledging those statistics when factoring in my decisions. I've also started going to the last 24 rounds instead of the last 36 as a baseline. 36 can be very misleading, I've seen, in the sense that sometimes it goes back too far than what I'm comfortable. I'm also starting to experiment with this time frame filter or drop down. You've got, all records. If you want very recent form, you can go 2 weeks, month, 2 months, all the way back. You can even put a custom date range in if you want. This is why Fantasy National is such an amazing tool. You need to go invest in it if you're going to be a successful DFS player, a successful gambler. Just call it what it is. But I'm starting to experiment around with this. So I've got it for the last 24 rounds or the last 12 months if they don't have 24 rounds. And when we sort by my rank, again, you'll see the stars here. I just starred the top 25. That way I could give you what is projected ownerships for DFS, for DraftKings. I'm not sure how much DraftKings DFS tournaments I'm going to do with the Barbasol, but there are definitely some outright bets that I'm going to make in the Barbasol. There are some interesting things to note. First off, being the favorite, co-favorites are Seamus Power and Charles Schwartzel. They are co-favorites at, as soon as I find DraftKings in the million tabs that I have open. Yeah, Charles Schwartzel, Seamus Power, co-favorites at 16-1. So if you're betting the favorite in the field at 16-1, that's pretty darn good value, just in of itself. Just take the British Open, for example. The Open Championship, excuse me. The favorite there is Jon Rahm, arguably the best player in the world right now. There's no denying that. He's at 7-1, and the quality of field at the Open Championship is laughably, substantially better than the Barbasol. So you would think the other way around, in the sense, if you have so much great talent at the Open Championship, you would think that the odds would spread out a little bit, where your favorite might be, say, 12, 14-1. And this place where you would have, 2 to 3 guys, 3 big name guys here, just because it's an alternate field event and they didn't qualify for the Open Championship, that this would lend itself to a 7-1 shot, and then maybe a 10 or a 12-1. It's the opposite. So you have your co-favorites at 16-1, and that kind of shocked me. That shocked me. And if that's your favorite, you can imagine the value, at least expected value of return based on betting on what the odds you're going to get on some of these guys. For example, my third-rated player, Adam Schenk, who had an amazing John Deere Classic. Tied for fourth, bent grass greens. He's great on bent grass greens. We're going to get into the wind situation. This is a positive right now. He's never been good around the green. I don't know how much that's going to be a factor. Maybe it's a big factor, and Adam Schenk should just be thrown out immediately. I just don't know. He's coming off 2 solid tournaments, one exceptional tournament, tied for fourth. Granted, a lot of that was in his putting, but he has traditionally been a good putter, as you can see here. Maybe not 8 strokes gained putting, but generally he has been a good putter, so I'm willing to forgive this and expect it to regress to the mean, maybe back to 1 or 1.5, not a full 0. But the main point I'm getting at, Adam Schenk is my number 3 rated player in my model. He's at 30-1. That is value to me. If he's rated third in a model, in a statistics model, and you're getting 30-1 on it, that is value. And you see, he has no bad stats, none. He's got a pretty middling one. His eagle rate, his strokes gained approach has been good, not great, but good. He has nothing bad like a Luke List putting nightmare or Vaughn Taylor's lack of driving the ball far, or he's got the same thing as Charlie Beljon, and he's not as bad as Charlie Beljon, whoever that is, at eagling holes. So, I mean, that's a bet I'm probably going to make at 30-1. It's not that I am believing in Adam Schenk relative to the field, and it's not as much a pro for Adam Schenk as it is, I don't want to say an indictment on the field, it's just the quality of the field is obviously lower. So Adam Schenk in a normal PGA Tour event would be maybe DFS 7,000, 7,200, maybe even as low as 65, 66. He's 9,400 here. He's one of the best guys here. If you're getting 30-1 on that, sign me up. So that's probably a bet I'm going to make. I don't know how much exposure I'm going to have in the Barbasol Championship. I made my betting card for the Open Championship, and all of that will be revealed, Barbasol and Open Championship, tomorrow on the Open DFS Tactics show. But I mean that's a bet I'm considering very, very heavily. You come down through the list here. I mean, the top 4 are fairly chalky, by DFS standards. I definitely want to look at bent grass performance and putting. Excuse me, sorry. And we'll. I am going to widen this out to last 36 just because I am not putting a filter on, course type or anything like that. I do have the last 12 months, but bent grass greens are prominent enough. This isn't POA. This isn't Paspalum. Bent greens are common enough that 36 is going to be an ample enough size to raise this, the amount that you're bringing in. And I just want to look at strokes gained putting in this field and who has putt well traditionally on bent grass. So you have Hunter Mahan, Christopher Ventura, Satoshi Kodaira, who is a winner on the PGA Tour, Aaron Baddeley, Johnson Wagner, Richie Wierenski, who has played very well at this tournament before, Bo Hostler, who's known as a good putter anyway, Ryan Gibson, Michael Glajcic, Sahith, I think it's Tigala, who's somebody I'm very high on this week as well. As you can see, he has no real bad stats. He's got a couple, fairly mediocre ones. But those are your top 10 at putting on bent grass greens. And if we bring this to, say, I'll use the term Hank Lebioda that I kind of used last week. Hank Lebioda was in fuego with the putter. Going into last week's John Deere Classic, I just want to see who is putting, very, very well on bent grass. Sorry, I'm laughing as the person that I shouted out at the beginning of the episode is is giving me a good time in the chat. So as always, guys, please jump in. I love the interaction. And then if you look at the past 8 rounds, who's really, really hot with the putter on bent grass, same guy. You have a couple overlap here. Hunter Mahan, Johnson Wagner, Rain Gibson, Adam Schenk pops here for recent form with the putter on bent. Sahith Theegala, Jim Herman, who won this event, I believe, in 2019. Roger Sloan, who's somebody I've traditionally been high on in the past. Seamus Power lurks right outside the top 10. Kodaira is there as well. So, your typical bent grass performers have been putting well on it and have been, traditionally been good putters on bent grass. So we're going to take off the filter of the bent grass, and let's look at easy courses, because this course is very, very easy. And let's just see who plays easy courses well using these statistics, and see what shows up. I imagine we're going to get a lot of recent form from the Rocket Mortgage, and the John Deere Classic was easy. What was the one in between that? They're all running together now. So number 1 on easy courses in this field is Charles Schwartzel, then Joseph Bramlett, Christopher Ventura, JT Poston, Roger Sloan, Sahith Theegala, Grayson Murray, there's a name I haven't heard in a long time, Mito Pereira, who's somebody I really, really like this week and kind of moving forward. He's well known on the Korn Ferry Tour. Look out for him next year in 2022. Chesson Hadley and Rob Oppenheim. So those are your guys that are performing well with these metrics, mainly driving and birdies are better on easy courses. Let's remove that filter. Let's just look at a strokes gained, pure strokes gained, 24 rounds, and see who plays on easy courses without any of my filters. Let's just see who plays easy courses well. And I'm glad to see that Patrick Rogers does not play them well. So it's lining up with my model there. Number 1 is Grayson Sigg, and Lee Hodges is number 2. I know both of those are Korn Ferry guys. Grayson Sigg played in the U.S. Open. He was also a Valero. He did come in the top 10 at an alternate field event earlier this year at the Corrales. Similar style golf course. Corrales is certainly longer, but similar style course. And then here you can see a top 5 at a Korn Ferry event. He's made some cuts. I mean, apparently really good form at the beginning of the season in the Korn Ferry. Second last year at the Korn Ferry Championship. So when playing easy courses, it looks like he has done fairly well. Not a good putter, at least for the statistics that we have. Doesn't play well in the wind, so I am not sure how high I'll be on Grayson Sigg. But of the guys that have a substantial enough amount of stats, you've got Mito Pereira, Charles Schwartzel, Roger Sloan, Sahith Theegala, JT Poston again, James Hahn, Seamus Power, Badley, and Von Taylor. So I just wanted to kind of see, without my filters, without, just on a pure strokes gained perspective, how these guys played. I actually meant to look and see who the architect of Keen Trace is, and I actually don't know that. I really don't know that. So let's move to the tournament history here of the guys that are in the field at the Barbasol this week. And remember, because this has only been at Keen Trace from 2018 and 2019, we're only going to focus on these first two columns. Yes, the Barbasol was in existence in 2017, 16, and 15, but it was at a different golf course, different state. You saw there historic conditions. They played on Bermuda down in Alabama, where Robert Trent Jones Trail is. Generally, they were firm, they were fast. That hasn't been the case here at Keene Trace. So we're only going to look at 2018 and 2019 as we go through this tournament history. Seamus Powers played this event both years. Fairly middling results, but at least he has some course knowledge. Patrick Rogers played it last year, missed the cut. Shank missed the cut and then tied for 18th. You've got Stefan Yeager has pretty much I will give it to him, top 20 both years. Richie Wierenski tied for second in 2018 and played well 2019. You got Nick Taylor, who's played well here. JT Poston has played well here. Your defending champ is Jim Herman. Bryce Garnett, Scott Brown. Chesson Hadley has played the event well, but it wasn't at this course. Denny McCarthy tied for 11th last year. Again, I'm just looking at guys who have played it well or not played it well that is in the field this week. You got Fabian Gomez, who has some course knowledge. Austin Cook, the one time he played it at this course, he played it well. He actually played this event well also when it was in Alabama. So that's a name to kind of consider here. Josh Teeter. Let's see. Jonathan Bird, Johnson Wagner. Let's go down here at the bottom. Let's see who just does not play this course well. Omar Uresti, Jason Bone. I mean, he made the cut and then I guess fell off or something. John Daly. Big John Daly's here. Dominic Mazzelli actually tied for 9th last year, or 2019. So all of his minus in strokes gained probably is coming from here. So Dominic Mazzelli might be a name to at least consider because he has a good year here, which is basically all you can go by since it's only got 2 years of data. So yeah, there's not a lot of data to go on, so you kind of have to go on what you have. Let's take a look at the leaderboard. Let's do 2019 first, only because you're right. John Daly, the Ric Flair of golf. That's not a bad comparison. I like it. I don't know if he'll be teeing up off any beer cans like he has, but that'd be quite a sight to see. He was actually in the Open Championship field and withdrew to come here and probably just drink beer with the other Kentuckians. I don't know, but he's going to be entertaining out there. 2019. Let's just look at the leaderboard. Oh, well, that's why we don't have data from the 2019. We just have the tournament history here. So let's do that. You got Jim Herman, who won in 2019. Austin Cook tied for 4th. Teeter Trahan tied for 6th. So there you go. There's a lot of players who just didn't play it in 2019. Brian Gay is interesting because he finished 6th the year before and then missed the cut. You have Lingmerth and Henry, who tied for 15th and missed the cut. These guys just don't apparently play this course very well at all. Neither does Atwall. He missed the cut and then 72nd. Cut and then tied for 53rd. T17, 45. So unfortunately, they don't have the data for the 2019. That they just have. We can just go by this, but they do have absolutely the data from 2018. So let's take a look at this. And again, full transparency, a lot of my assumptions and conjectures comes from this because this is the only data we have for it. It is important to know that the Barbasol, I believe, is 120 players, 126 or so. and I believe top 60 make the cut. I might need to double check that for you, but it is not a full 156 field event, being an alternate event. And I believe it's top 60 in ties that make the cut. So when we look at 2018, your winner was Troy Merritt, Richie Wierenski, Tom Lovelady, Billy Horschel was here in 2018, Brian Gay, Cameron Percy. But what I'm more interested in, I mean, your winning scores, you had a lot of low scores. We've established that the course is very easy. Bent grass greens, par 72. I wanted to look at some strokes gained numbers, so let's do that. In 2018, it's important to note that a lot of the top end finishers, and you can argue this, for most tournaments, but especially here, they were ball striking the shit out of it. They were hitting their irons very, very well. So that's why I wanted to put even a bigger emphasis on the irons, more so than I normally do. And you'll notice tee to green, there is no red here. There is absolutely no red here in the top of the leaderboard. The first person that is red in off the tee is Charlie Wee at 44th. So you have to be damn good off the tee if you're going to compete here at Keen Trace. So that's why I've put so much emphasis on tee to green. So tee to green is off the tee and approach put together. Off the tee, you've got Brian Gay, who's just not a long hitter by any means. He just can't hit it past his shadow. He'll find fairways, but he just can't hit it past his shadow. And then Andres Romero. So, I mean, your top 20 or so guys, all of them were positive except for Brian Gay. And he made up for it by just being in fuego with the putter. So, I would venture to say 20 of the top 20, you have to be gaining strokes off the tee. And then combine that with the approach. The reason why I wasn't putting a lot of emphasis on around the green, I mean, you can see the winner was mediocre, slightly above average. You had some guys that did well. You had some guys that didn't do well around the green. The performance for the top of the leaderboard was hit and miss with around the greens. So that's why I attributed it as a net, as a wash, as a net wash, net zero, and didn't factor it into my model. But when we dig in a little bit deeper, we'll look at fairways and such. You see all the fairways gained, but look at the driving distance. So Wierenski, even though he finished second, was slightly below average. Brian Gay, we've established he can't hit it past his shadow, but majority of the top end guys were gaining distance. Ben Silverman was only slightly above average, but if I filter on driving distance, you only have one person that missed the cut in the top, 20 or so people that missed the cut driving distance wise. And I mean, the leader in driving distance was second. You had a 34th, and he's actually back in the field this week and coming off some very, very good form. I mean, Seamus Power, 8th at the John Deere, 8th at the Rocket Mortgage, top 20s at the Travelers and Palmetto. There's a reason he is the co-favorite at 16-1. But again, driving distance is going to be a big factor, and I extrapolated that from this information here. It's not until the 20th or 25th that you start getting regular miscuts of guys who gain or who are above average in distance and miss the cut. So driving distance is definitely going to be a big factor. Birdies and bogeys. You look here at the top end of the leaderboard. Eagles gained 1, 2, and 1 and 2 of them that are tied for second had positive eagle rates. I mean, the lowest is negative 0.4, and that's a lot of people. So, I mean, if you sort by the top of the leaderboard here, of the people who gained eagles, all of them made the cut. Birdies, I mean, there's a lot of the top of the leaderboard when you're making your birdies. I mean, if you're not making birdies at this course, you are falling behind very quickly. So the combination of birdies and eagles, that's why I wanted birdies are better, and a 5% on the eagle rate. That's why I put it in the model. If we look at birdies are better actual, just a flat rate, not a percentage against the field. You'll notice that Troy Merritt, I think, was your leader at 26. Yeah. So probably nothing too shocking there. This is kind of interesting. Matt Atkins was actually tied for fifth, I guess, among birdies or better. So he must have had a lot of birdies and a lot of bogeys if he only shot, or if he came in tied for 44th. So you certainly need to make birdies, and you also have to avoid bogeys. So you might want to take a look at that as well. I'm not sure. But we definitely want to look at this par 5 efficiency as well. You definitely have to take advantage of the par 5s here at Keen Trace. And we'll just sort by strokes gained par 5. First and second, and actually second had the most. And if you remember, he was the leader in driving distance as well. For whatever reason, he just was one shot back, or finished one shot behind Troy Merritt that year. But still, other than outright betting, like a win, if you're looking for DFS, like this is the formula right here: driving distance, par 5s. Lovelady, Merritt, Horschel, Munoz was played this in 2018. He was positive in the strokes gained par 5. Werenski, Barber. The first person that missed the cut positive is, you have to scroll down to do it. That tells you have to take advantage of the par 5s here at Keen Trace. So that's what, and I understand it says par 4 up there, but it's just a typo because you have the proper par 5 stuff here. It actually threw me off earlier today too. But yeah, you just got to take advantage of the par 5s. If we look at putting just quickly, other than Troy Merritt, who actually won the tournament, you still had to putt pretty well. That's why I kept it at 10 to 15% or whatever I did. It's not until you get to Joel Damon at -4 that you get a high finisher that just couldn't make a fucking putt. And another reason why, even though we saw so many birdie putts coming from 0 to 5 feet in the course breakdown, the top finishers weren't good compared to the field in that stat. So that's why I just went with a total strokes gained putting, and I didn't separate out the 0 to 5 feet, because it looks like that didn't have a lot of contribution to top end of the leaderboard success. So I just wanted to show you what I had dug into in the data for the Barbasol. I certainly have the capability to do this on any tournament, but my unfamiliarity with the Barbasol, with the majority of these players being some of them being Corn Ferry guys, don't know anything about the course. I really had to dig in and find out what is going on to contribute to these, to the leaderboard successes and failures and whatnot. Again, we'll come back to the weather, but let's come back to the stat engine, is what it's called at Fantasy National. With no filters on here, let's look at, I'm actually going to go back to my custom model. Actually, no, with none of my filters in place, let's just look at a pure strokes gained par 5. You've got Steph, and again, remember, I am keeping the Corn Ferry Tour filter on, because there's a lot of guys that are in here that maybe only have 4 to 8 rounds on the PGA Tour, but have been playing recently. It's just been on the Corn Ferry, so I want to make sure I'm accounting for that. Like Davis Riley is a perfect example. Davis Riley has played the last time he played on the PGA Tour was the Puerto Rico Open in February, but you see he's played May, April. So he's played since February, clearly. It's just not been on the PGA Tour. So that's why I am including the Korn Ferry stats. Just on a pure efficiency rate with none of my filters, no filters, just par fives. Stephan Jaeger, Sahith Theegala, Roger Sloan, Wes Roach, Vincent Whaley, Davis Riley, Stephen Stallings Jr., Seamus Power, Vaughn Taylor, and Hudson Swafford are your top 10. It should be no surprise that they actually end up being starred. And remember, I just starred the top 25 in my data model. It looks like my data model is showing, even considering other factors, when you take the other factors out, these guys are still playing the par 5s well. And you can see there the salary prices. If you're getting into DFS for the Barbasol, you got some some values here on a par 5 basis for sure. Vincent Whaley is somebody that I've used in on full field events. I've used Roger Sloan and actually made bets on Roger Sloan. So Seamus Power, like I said, is in great form, rated number 1 in my model anyway. So that's who's playing the par 5s. Well, let's filter in on easy course par 5s and see if that gives us any difference in the last 24 rounds. I imagine we'll get probably the same amount of overlap. Yeah, Seamus Power is still there. So Charles Schwartzel's actually number 1. Roger Sloan, Joseph Bramlett, and Denny McCarthy rises to 4th on easy course par 5s. Grayson Murray, Paul Barjon, Aaron Baddeley, Mito Pereira, Seamus, and Ben Martin. I want to take that off. And I mentioned that we were going to look at wind at the end. I'm actually going to do that now, not completely at the end of the show, just because I want to add this filter. So, again, this is Tuesday evening. Trying to project wind on a Thursday morning is asinine to do anyway, but because it's the only time I'm going to cover the Barbasol, this is what we have to go on. So it looks to be, not necessarily hot, but a typical summer day, I guess. You have winds at 10 miles an hour, which is nothing to scoff at, but it's not very gusty. 10 to 14 is not anything that a PGA Tour player can adjust to fairly easily. Now, when you get to Friday, you do have the same amount of sustained winds here, but the gusts start picking up, and you've got a little bit of rain in the forecast. So, pardon me 1 second while I make sure the software is showing. Yep. Okay, so, it's starting to get a little bit gustier. And if I had to conjecture on a Tuesday evening, if you're going to play some DFS, you're probably going to want to do a PM-AM split. Only because the AM and the PM wave seem to have similar style conditions on a Thursday. But on Friday, the PM is at a severe disadvantage as opposed to sustained winds and gusts. Now, if you're early in the morning, then yes, you might have some gusty winds there. But I would do a PM AM split if that's something you factor into your decisions in a DFS world. And then Saturday is we won't call it Open Championship style weather, but 8 miles an hour and gusting to 24. That's a lot, and then a lot of rain in the forecast. Looks like from Friday evening into Saturday morning, and with Sunday being very, very benign. With this amount of rain and gusts and wind, I would not be surprised if this either is moved to a 54-hole tournament, which I know the PGA Tour doesn't like to do, but I could see that happening, or see it pushed to Monday, depending on the amount of rain that comes in Nicholasville, Kentucky. So that's also something to take into consideration. But from a purely DFS standpoint, if I had to choose one, it'd be PM AM, and I feel fairly confident with that analysis, to be honest. We'll close out of that. Start rounding out the show here, but I do want to at least put the windy filter on in case the winds do pick up in Nicholasville. I just want to see, just on a strokes gained basis, no other, not par fives, not just wind. Who plays well in the wind that's here at this tournament this week? You got Ryan Brim, Camilo Villegas, Adam Schenk again, Bryce Garnett, Rafael Campos, Sean O'Hare, Karadek, Appy, Barnrat, Lee Hodges, Aaron Baddeley, and Vincent Whaley are top 10 players at strokes gained total in the wind. So we'll. I'm going to come back to my custom stat model here as we start to round out the show for the Barbasol. Take off the windy filter. Go through this rigmarole again. It appears. Let's do some quick ownership projections here. You're again like last week. When we were at the John Deere, you were either very chalky or not. Very little in between. So the most common play right now is indeed Seamus Power with an expected ownership of 32%. I can't say that I argue with it because he's in great form. He's been playing on the PGA Tour, so he's been playing against stiffer competition. I'm not sure I would avoid the chalk, to be honest. Schwartzel's chalky as well at 19.5. In fact, all four of these guys are fairly chalky. Luke List is the lowest at 13%. I would just avoid Patrick. Sorry, let me sort by salary. I would just avoid Patrick Rogers. He just doesn't fit well in the model. But I will not fault you for using Power, Schwartzel, or even List. I would gravitate towards these two, even though they're the most chalky. But if you want to be contrarian at the top, play Luke List. He's only at 13% as opposed to 20 and 32. Moving on down, your chalky play in the 9K range is Adam Schenk. Again, I can't argue. Great form. He's going to be an outright bet for me probably. I am intrigued by Davis Riley. So he is sitting at. He's only sitting at 6.5%. If you want to get off the Adam Schenk chalk, you might want to play Davis Riley. Richie Wierenski wouldn't be too bad. He's just not in great form. But I wouldn't be opposed to Wierenski either. Stefan Jaeger, he's popped on a few models, especially the par 5s. He's only at 6.5%. Moving to the 8Ks, your chalky play in here is Jim Herman. He's the defending champ. Makes sense. I'm not as high on Jim Herman. I would much rather go with Sahith Theegala. Or Mito Pereira, for that matter. Mito's getting a little bit of love. He is at 9%. Brian Stewart's getting a lot of love at 15% as well. But Sahith Theegala is only at 5%. I am comfortable playing Sahith Theegala all day long in DFS for Barbasol. Again, I just don't know how much DFS Barbasol, if any, I'm going to play. But if you are, let me know how it goes. Let me know how you do next week for sure, or through the weekend. Let's see. Moving into the 7Ks. Again, I understand this is rapid fire, but I don't want to spend too terribly much time on it, especially since we haven't talked outright betting odds. Moving to the 7Ks, Jason Duffner, just because he's a big name here at the field this week, he's at 18%. You do have some middling people, or middling ownership percentages in here. Roger Sloan's at 15. Vaughn Taylor's at 15. We've seen them pop on a few models. There's Vaughn Taylor. Roger Sloan. Kadira is at 15. I guess your contrarian play around here would be someone like Bo Hogue. He's only at 6.5. Ben Martin, who's popped on a couple of our models, he's at 6.5%. Joseph Bramlett popped on a couple, he's at 15%. So hopefully those are a couple of contrarian plays for you. And if you want to come down into the far reaches of the nether realm, they say, Sean O'Hare's at 13 at 7K, and literally nobody else is above 5%. So it looks like if players are playing DFS for the Barbasol, they're cutting their bottom end off at Sean O'Hare at 7K. I actually like MJ DeFew a lot this week. Quite a bit. You can see he's ranked 9th on my model. He has no bad stats. 10th in driving distance. If he's 10th in distance and only 64th on the tee, that means he says, fuck the fairway, I'm just going to hit as far as I can. And I think that's going to play fairly well this week. So, at least at the Barbasol. He plays par 5s pretty well. He's got a pretty good eagle rate. MJ DeFew is somebody I'm very high on. I would suggest using him in your DFS lineups, as he's going to be a very, very contrarian play. Somebody else I want to highlight, and I'll sort by driving distance. He's actually being hurt a little bit because he actually has some rounds, is Wilco Nienaber. You want to talk about somebody who just doesn't give a fuck about the fairway, it's Wilco Nienaber. First off the tee, 5th in distance. I can't say it enough. This guy, he is fun to watch. You want to see somebody just hit the ever-living bejesus out of the ball, it's Wilco Nienaber. He made his debut at the Palmetto, top 15, played pretty darn well. U.S. Open, he made the cut. You can't argue. He made the cut. Just, the rest of his game was shit that week, but certainly can hit the ball out there. So he's somebody else I definitely want to highlight. If you're looking for that angle of just driving distance and so on, use Wilco Nienaber. He is at only 6.5%. So yeah, I would be very comfortable playing Wilco and MJ DeFew in my lineups. Just very quickly, some of the odds that I want to highlight again. Just the favorites at 16-1 is just kind of shocking to me. Barbasol Field. So they don't have the betting odds for the Barbasol loaded into Fantasy National. Let's see. Just using the two players I just highlighted, Wilco Nienaber is 50-1. MJ DeFew is 130-1. I really like MJ DeFew this week. Not to say he's going to win, but at 130-1, well worth the risk. Because I have him ranked 9th in my model, and you're going to give me 130-1. Sign me up. Others that I kind of want to highlight here, Shank I mentioned at 30-1. Luke List, if he ever makes a putt, he's going to be a very good golfer. He's only at 20-1. Sahith, that's another one. Sahith Tagala is at 50-1. It's another bet that I very much consider. Stefan Jaeger, 35-1. He popped on a lot of the models. Where'd he go? He's right here, 14th in my data model. Davis Riley, somebody I like quite a bit this week. He's at 40-1. So there's definitely some value to be had at the Barbasol Championship. I know it's not nearly as fun to bet the Barbasol than it is the Open Championship, but hey, we're here to make money. And this is an honest assessment. I really think you can make a lot of money if you're really digging into the data for the Barbasol Championship, because it's being forgotten since it's the alternate field event. I'm certainly going to have some exposure here at the Barbasol. I just don't know how much, since the Open's just more fun, so I put a pretty good amount on the Open Championship. But I think that's going to end the show for the Barbasol. Again, guys, comment below. Let me know. Did you enjoy it? What do you want to see tomorrow in the Open DFS Tactics show? What are you going to do for the Barbasol? Are you gonna make any outright bets? Are you going to play DFS? What's your strategy if you're going to play DFS? As always, smash that like button for the extra content tonight. Subscribe to the channel. All the support's appreciated. And until tomorrow night when we get into the Open and the DFS Tactics, may all your bets be profitable.